Are you trying to get in the picture? Good morning, guys. What are we doing today, Jordan?
Frog fishing.
We are frog fishing. We are actually pre-fishing for the Spro Frog Tournament this Saturday. Jake's actually going to be fishing with me, but Jake's got doctor's appointments today, so Jordan is standing in for the first day of pre-fishing. So let's get on it. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's an advantage to having an aluminum boat. Y'all are about to see. I love the Tennessee River because the culverts are just wide enough for me to fit my boat through, and that allows me to get into places that them big bass boats can't get into. Watch this. Now, only if there had been bass back in there, we'd have been pretty good. But it's cool to be able to go places that other big boats can't. It's a lot of fun. How was that boat ride, Jordan? So, we're basically, for the first, when I'm pre-fishing, what I do is I want to see both sides of the lake the first day, or both ends of the lake. We started off on one end this morning, didn't see any bait fish, nothing that really excited us about much of anything, really. And I didn't get a bite. Could also be the fact that the water temperature has just tanked this weekend. But I'm not going to come up with any excuses. There just weren't any bait fish around. So we put the boat on the trailer. We came all the way to the other end of the lake, or not all the way, but most of the way to the other end of the lake. And we'll spend a few hours looking here. And we're just going to, just go around everywhere looking for bait, and then looking for bait,
and then looking for bait,
and looking for more bait. As soon as I find bait, then I start fishing and start looking for bass. As you can see behind me, there's a whole bunch of mats. The difference between this tournament and any other tournament that I've ever fished, hold on, let me drop my power pole so I don't get into some bad spots. There we go. The difference is the fact that I gotta find fish shallow. Me, I prefer looking for fish deeper, way, out on the ends of points and things like that. But because I'm limited to only being able to fish a Spro Frog, I've got to change my way of thinking, and I've got to find fish shallow that may or may not be willing to bite during the tournament. And so it's forcing me to go into places that this boat is probably the only kind of boat comparative to the big bass boats that can get into. So, this morning we pulled the boat through a culvert, which was pretty cool. So now what we're going to do, let me show you what I've got on the front deck of the boat, and show you what I'm using to fish with. Right now I'm just looking for fish in grass mats. So that's kind of what I've got on the boat. On the deck of the boat, I've got a frog. I've got a light tungsten weight with a black and blue paddle tail worm or swimming worm or whatever you want to call it. And over here I've got my punching rig. I got an 1.5 ounce weight. Look at that, 7'11" rod. Not like a good 7-11 rod, 1.5 ounce weight, but that's what I've got set up. That's what I've got tied on, and I'm just gonna fish this grass until we figure something out. We're gonna go off-roading, put this thing into some places where we may or may not be able to get out of, Jordan. I didn't bring my push pole, so we might be in trouble. right, so let me give you a little recap of what's going on today. Talk a little bit more about today's pre-fishing day. I put the boat in the water. Water temperature is about 66 degrees this morning. It warmed up to about 70. But with a cool off like that, the shad are going to quickly move into the creeks. They're going to move towards the back of them, maybe if it's a short creek. At least that was my thinking. So Jordan and I took off and went all the way to the back of a creek, found some small ones in some grass, pulled out a little more towards the mouth of the creek, found another good patch of grass that was loaded with fish, caught one about 4, left that spot, came to a little short creek. It's actually a fairly long creek, but you can't get back very far because there's, it's matted way back in there. I might be able to work my way back in there during tournament day. But got up here, shad everywhere, scattered grass. I hooked into a big one that freaking broke my heart. Hopefully he'll be here on Saturday. I let Jordan catch a few. We caught some really good fish right here, so we're going to pack this one up and leave. So it's a classic fall pattern. Just kind of happened because the water temperature dropped. I don't expect that to be that way on Saturday because the water temperature is going to come back up with some warm days. But I know there's good fish in this area. I'm definitely going to check it a couple of days before the tournament, and then on tournament day this may end up being my first spot, or the spot where we were catching a bunch of small ones. Who knows? But basically what I did this morning, went down to the south end of the lake, found out there was nothing. There was no shad, there was no nothing. I mean, there were, but there weren't that many. And where I wanted to go way back in the back, there was nothing. So we put it back on the trailer, came up here to the north end, and we found some. Unfortunately, it's an hour-long boat ramp, or it's an hour-long boat ride from the launch, from where we're launching on Saturday. So I'm going to have to haul butt to get up here. So cool. Well, we're going to go check a few more spots, check some docks, try to find a secondary pattern. Actually, I have a secondary pattern from last week. I'm going to go check it and make sure it's still viable. It should be. And then on our way out, we're going to start skipping docks and throwing some stuff around docks and see if there's something that we can't come up with that would be a plan B if this plan doesn't work out. Real quick, let's talk about the two different types of frogs I'm fishing. I'm fishing a frog that I have modified to fish mats really well, and I'm fishing a frog that I have modified to be able to walk and fish open water really well. This is one of my favorite walking baits. It's walking frogs. It's the new pop shad that just came out, I think this year or last year. And then you got a popping frog. Popping frogs are okay. I also have another one that's the standard regular frog that's modified. Put a little weight in it. Now, key thing for the Spro tournament is you cannot fish a frog that sinks. So I have to be real careful with how much weight I put in it. I put a couple of rattles, and then I put a 1/16 ounce tungsten weight in it. And what that does is it causes that frog to push down on the mat and cause a little bit more disturbance underneath the mat, and the fish can pick it up a little bit easier. This one's my walking bait. You get it around this outside cover along the scattered vegetation. You got scattered submerged grass out here, and you want it to look like a shad. It's out of shad pattern, and it walks really, really well. And that's all I'm doing is I'm just walking it around. So open water, matted vegetation. I got 2 of them rigged up. This is how I'll have them rigged up on tournament day. The walking frog, because I'm going to be walking it a lot, it's on my 6.5 heavy. Real easy to walk with a 6.5 rod, and then this one's on the 7.3 medium heavy, as a matter of fact, my mat rod. It's got a little bit more backbone than you would think a medium heavy would, but it's got enough tip to be able to chunk this thing a mile. So I may switch to a heavy if I'm fishing really thick stuff, but that's the standard two types of frogs that I'm fishing. All right, so this is day 2 of pre-fishing. We're actually late getting out. It's late in the afternoon. We're just going to fish for a couple of hours. Recap, day before yesterday when I was out here with Jordan, pretty much figured out what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be fishing outside of grass that's really, really shallow. I'm looking for these big, huge bays of grass that's super, super shallow, less than 3 feet deep. And what's happening is the lake level's dropping right now. And thanks to the TVA and that TVA app that I use, the Tennessee Valley Authority, who runs these lakes, I'm able to tell what the lake levels are doing. So the levels are dropping. All these fish that are in these huge shallow grass flats or these grass bays are pulling out to the deeper water, and they're on that outside edge. There's not that many of them in the lake. I hope they're not community holes. I have no clue, but I found out that they're sitting out there and they're just gorging themselves on bait fish. So I've got 3 spots right now. The goal today and tomorrow is to find more spots just like it that have fish just outside on that outside edge, and that way I have more options. That's it. That's what we're going to do today. If I figure out anything new, I'll turn the camera back on and talk to you guys about it. All right, well, end of day, I guess you can call it day 3 of practice. I pretty much know what I'm doing. I got a main game plan. I've got several spots. What we're doing right now, we're just trying to find more spots like it. As you can see right here, this whole area is just nothing but matted vegetation. Matted milfoil is what it is. And then all the way back up in there, it's really, really shallow. With the lake level dropping, it's going to push all those fish that have been all up in here shallow. It's going to push them all out here into deeper water. We're just trying to find that magic depth. Now, the one thing that I've noticed in checking all of these spots is there has to be fresh water running into the back. It has to be a drain or a creek running into the back of these pockets, and that's where you find the big loads of fish. There's quite a few of them right here, and there's a creek right out the backside. And so this is going to be one of our backup spots a little further down the lake than where we're going to be mainly fishing, and it's just going to be awesome. Basically tomorrow is going to be, I really don't have to pre-fish. I just want to make sure Jake is comfortable since he hasn't had a chance to catch a fish on a frog yet, and this is the first day he's been able to fish with me. I want to make sure that he's comfortable with hooking into frogs, working his frogs right, so we're going to go find more spots. I'm going to have 2 or 3 rods set up on the boat. I'm going to have 1 rod set up for mat fishing with a little bit heavier frog, and I'm going to have one set up for open water fishing with a light walking frog, and then maybe another mat frog depending on the color. That's going to be my tournament setup. That's going to be my setup for the rest of the time. This has been kind of a tricky tournament pre-fish because I love to fish offshore. Frogs don't really work that good offshore. So I've had to force myself to come up here shallow, turn the electronics off, and just use what I see, my observations. Lots of fish or no fish, lots of sign or no sign, and then fish from there. So I hope you guys learned a little bit from this pre-fishing video. Like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out of the water, go and catch some fish, and have a great day. We'll see you.